Hey, welcome back, world. Here we are again. Yuck. Don't you hate that? Ums. Quick story about ums. All right, so I have a degree, if you will, in communication. And there was a course that I took. I took many public speaking courses, probably like 6 of them, as a requirement. Did not enjoy most of it because you're being judged. I guess it's good because you're being judged. That's the whole point. It is a little bit nerve-wracking. But one of the hardest parts of the course in public speaking is space fillers. We often think that we need to speak very quickly. And that's not true. We need to speak more slowly. And we need to think about what we're saying. And to have random pauses to make sure that's what we want to say. You ever hear anybody say, think before you speak? So many times our tongues get ahead of ourselves and of our minds, and we're like, oh, I should have went with point B instead of point A. One of these public speaking classes that I had was terrible. It was awful. We had 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That's a long time to speak. And there were only so many subjects. Maybe it's 3 minutes. This is a long time ago, 25 years. And you had time to prepare. You had weeks, months probably, probably like 6 weeks. It was like the whole course. But you had to do a public speaking thing. No notes. But you had to go up there, and you got to have like your starter and bullet and points to support it. And then they would call things like the midsection and the da-da-da, and they'd have all these terms for different points. It's supposed to flow continuously, the conversation is, but it's only one-sided conversation. It's very hard to have a one-sided conversation. Great communication has a feedback loop. Point A to B, B to A to B, B to A, it goes back and forth. Continues. It's hard to talk to yourself. I gotta turn this radio down a little bit. The kids are a little loud today, so I turned it way up. Got some jazz in the background. Yeah, there we go. I was like, what was he thinking about? That's what I was thinking about. Space fillers. Because we often think that we're not going fast enough, and we don't like to have dead air, dead space, silence. We don't do good with silence, the human brain. We feel uncomfortable sometimes. And so when we speak, we use words like, like, brah, dude, like, We're essentially trying to let the other party know that we're thinking about something. So that's a space filler. They're very distracting. They're very annoying. And to get to my point, in this class that we had, I'm going to say it was a 3-minute speech that we had to do because this was my bachelor's. And the professor had a little, you ever go someplace and it's like ring bell for service, for help, ring bell, because there's nobody at the counter. So you go up there and you're like, bing, bing, bing. And then if nobody comes, you're like, bing, 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 bing. And then they come out and they're like, what? Well, she had a bell. It did that. And every time you used a space filler, but it was also a counter. And every time you used the space filler, bing, and it had a number. Bing, bing. And there was this girl, and I'm going to say it was 3 minutes. 87 space fillers in 3 minutes. I don't think she passed the class, but she was very nervous. She felt very judged, and I felt awful for her. I felt bad for her. But she was one of those people that, she didn't really pay attention to class. She was always like on her phone or on her laptop, doing something different, showed up late, left early. I always looked like she was on her way to the club versus at university. 87 space fillers. That'd be like, I'm going to give you an example right here. Like this one time I was going to go with my a friend of mine. Oh man, it gives you a headache. I mean, it can really give you a headache. That's really difficult to be around. But we all do it because it's human nature. We tend to not like silence. So these are the things, that's a pet peeve of mine, space fillers. If I'm speaking with somebody and they have a lot of space fillers, we're not going to speak very much because you don't have confidence in what you're saying or something. And I like to speak to people at this point in my life that have confidence in what they're saying or what they're telling me. I like to speak with people. I like to listen to people that have information and knowledge to pass along to make me a better person, to give me a gift that I can pass along to others. Nothing that I've encountered in my life, none of my knowledge is like, oh, this came to me just because I'm an amazing person. No, it was a situation, it was an experience, and my involvement angle created the opportunity, and I remember it, and I use it, whether it's good or bad, If you see a police officer behind you, you might want to put on your seatbelt and slow down. It's just, I didn't know that at first. Things like that. So yeah, there was one right there. Space fillers. It's a pet peeve, and it's a pet peeve of mine, and yet I still do it. I guess that's why they call it a pet peeve. I don't know what peeve means. I don't know why they call it a pet peeve either, because pets are supposed to be something that you enjoy having around, right? If it's a pet peeve, I don't know what peeve means. I might have to look that up. I don't like to say things that I don't know. I'm not confident in. But there goes one, the word pet peeve, man. I have a comedy list and I have a whole section on just words. Words that we use that mean nothing, or they mean nothing like they sound like they should mean. And we wonder why we don't communicate well. We wonder why we're not able to have solid, decent conversations that are full of knowledge. It's like I'm getting way off track here. This is what I do. I go down rabbit holes. It's like the F word. The F word. That didn't come across right. I don't use it. I stopped using it. I intentionally stopped using it about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It's a terrible word, and in the 80s and 90s, it held great power. All words hold power. If you use that word in the 80s and 90s, people stopped. People were like, hey, what's going on? What happened? Oh, what's going on? There's that. Ooh, what happened? That word's cartoons use the word now. Seriously. It has lost so much power, we're teaching it to children. I'll give you a little tidbit here. When I was in the Marine Corps, hoorah. When I was in the Marines, we were out in the field for a few months, and, just a bunch of young jarheads sitting around, smoking and talking and cursing a lot. And a Catholic priest was out there with us. He supported our battalion, and he came over and he's like, hey, let's talk. And this is probably it intrigued me. And I'm sure that's where a huge part of my knowledge for communication came from, because I was like, wow, can't believe what this guy just said. And he said, let's talk about cursing. And he said, you have curse words and you have blessing words. They call them curse words for a reason. You're cursing something. A curse is an awful thing. It's terrible. It's destructive. It's demonic. Blessings are the opposite. I love you. You're an amazing person. You're doing so well. Etc. Or the opposite. Complete put-downs, monstrous words, cursing at people. But as Marines, that is something that we did. I don't know why. Because as young men that were being trained for war, for combat, essentially to kill, it helped ease the pain, the mental anguish, I guess. But the F word, they would call it the F-bomb. They call it a bomb for a reason. Because bombs destroy. Bombs kill. A bullet can do a lot of damage. A bomb, it's a wrap. So they would call it the F-bomb. You knew it was a bad thing, you know. He used the F-bomb. Anyway, this Catholic priest comes over and he says, "Do you know the origins of this word?" He says, "Yeah, let's talk about cuss words. Give me one." And so we started with the big dog. And he says the origins of that word. Back in the early days, say the, 1200s, making that up completely, I don't know. The Great Crusades. During this period of time, pagan kings would have, I'm not talking like palace-wise, like Rome, you know? We're talking like very small village kings. But they still had their castles and they still had their rules and they were pagan. But if somebody there's a click. I do that too. That's one of my space fillers. Don't like it. The kings would have an opportunity on the night of a bride and groom's wedding. The night that she was to be wed, before they were to fulfill their marriage, if you know what I'm saying. The king would have the night before to spend with that bride-to-be. And it was called the Night of the F Word. I'm not going to say it. It comes from the Germanic language, the ancient Germanic language. And it's close to the word, but it's a little bit longer, like Fulukinian or something, you know. It's been a long time since I've heard it or looked it up. And it's not a story I tell often, but there it is. Everything has a reason, a purpose, an origin. It came from somewhere. It was used for a purpose, and that's where that word came from. The F word came, essentially, the king got to have his way with all brides before the groom did. And obviously that's an awful thing. But you couldn't say no, or else it was death. And because of that, it became an awful thing. And people would use it in place of saying something awful happened. And here we are 2,000 years later, throwing this word around like it's a good thing. It's acceptable now. Here we are 2,000 years later, and people can't say words like, there's so many words, there's so many natural words that have real meaning, and we can't use them because social media channels will block us. But then we don't say the word, and they will say, he ended his time here on Earth. Because you can't say the S word. Or that woman was taken advantage of in a bush at night in Central Park, and she was not interested in that because of the R word, you know? Or we just say SV for another type of crime. So we're changing the dynamics and the characteristics of our words that we're using, and we're destroying our own language even more to interrupt our natural ability to communicate. It's really strange. That was a crazy rabbit hole. That all came down from ums and likes and buts. I don't even know what I was going to get on here and talk about. I don't know. I guess that's where I'm going to end this video, though. Peace. Know what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. Know what you're saying. Learn something.